Hello everyone, I would like to welcome you to my presentation. So dear ICSSH conference participants in 2024, ladies and gentlemen, professors, lecturers and students, my name is Roland A. Csizmazia originally, and I am from South Korea, Seoul. I teach at Kwangwoon University, and also thank very much to the conferences that right now I just became promoted, and I am a full professor at this university. Thank you very much for your attention right now. So the topic is Hungary disadvantaged by the sanctions against Russia? And well, I also have created a short abstract about it, and here are the topics which I would like to handle today. Let's see. Now, the Hungarian political environment from 2015. The reason why I don't touch any topics before, because actually from that time on, the Hungarian government used the nation's fear for their re-election again and again, and until now with a great success. Also, from that moment, Hungary took another path and didn't follow the European Union members. So let's see what we have here. Shifting oil and gas imports, then Russian and Hungarian relations, and frozen funds and EU relationships to Hungary. So the question is if this relationship between Hungary and Russia also led to negative effects on Hungary. Now, as I mentioned, since 2015, the Orban government has used people's fear against the unknown and immigration. For the most recent election, the Orban government conveyed the simple message: only those who vote for Fidesz, so the ruling party, vote for peace. And systematically also destroyed other people around who could have been elected instead of the still Prime Minister Orban, or Viktor Orban. Now, this fear arose when 390,000 refugees, mostly Muslims, across the country, and Orban found his actually kind of godfather, who supported him continuously during studies as well, as an enemy, and that's how George Soros, who originally supported Fidesz in the mid of 1990s, became the main enemy, together with the opponents. So the arrival of these people was not seen as a humanitarian issue, but as a Muslim invasion threatening the national security and the social cohesion and the Christian identity of the country. Religious affiliation is fairly homogeneous in Hungary. So Roman Catholic we see like 50%, according to the US Religion Report. Now, already in 2010, the Orban government started to use its power against the freedom. And one of Viktor Orban's most important political principles is that to be successful in politics and to gain power, one needs disciplined communication and loyal media. The leader of the Fidesz party has been working on this since the mid of 1990s, both in opposition and in the government. According to the Prime Minister's approach, in addition to a press loyal to the party, it is also crucial that the leeway of media critical of the authorities is as narrow as possible, because even a single negative statement could cause serious problems. Since his return to power in 2010, Orban has introduced a number of measurements to help achieve this kind of goals. In 2010, the press still had considerable freedom to work within a parliament building. But the Speaker of the House modified the bylaws of the House. It significantly reduced the chance of the press to access politicians inside the parliament. As of December 2023, the so-called Sovereignty Protection Office has been appointed with unlimited powers, operating without any control. Ostensibly legitimate, the office will in fact have complete arbitrary power, as I mentioned, and it doesn't even need sanctions, since the damage caused by investigations without limits or legal guarantees could be enough in itself to ruin the targeted media organs. Recently, a smear campaign against media has been intensified, and the new opponent in that media is now the 444.hu, and in its international journalism project partners say the media, the freedom of the media is attacked. Also, if we see what's going on in the EU, we see that most of the countries changed the source of their oil demand, and their oil and their natural gas supplies, and two countries, mainly Slovakia and Hungary, remained highly dependent of Russian sources. Also, the diversification efforts, including agreement with Turkey, probably stem from Hungary's desire to improve its bargaining position with Russia, as well as from the current difficult geopolitical situation and challenges that may ensue for the gas market, especially for Russian supplies. We see that there is a friendly relationship, and Hungary hasn't really reduced, and quite the opposite, so it actually increased the gas supplies from Russia. Now, meanwhile, the doubts that this Turkish imported gas would actually flow not from Turkey itself, but through Turkey from Russian sources. So, as I mentioned, Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic still receive Russian crude oil through the southern branch of the Druzhba pipeline, so friendship pipeline. But now Ukraine halted the oil from Lukoil and only allows the other companies. And if we see how Russian and Hungarian relations developed, we also know that Viktor Orban has already told at the very beginning that winds actually of the east were blowing in the world economy around 2010. The reason why it was like that is because the demand declined from Western countries due to the crisis, and insufficient Western financing has stepped in. And China has been seen and also presented by the Orban government as a potential savior for Hungary, with a couple of hopes to draw demand and capital, but this hope hasn't been materialized. So Hungary heavily the Hungarians' dependence on Europe for capital investment and trade remained unchanged actually between 2010 and 2020. And only recently, when actually there is no more need, this has been changed through investments from China and South Korea. But as I mentioned, then it is no longer what the country itself needed. And unfortunately, this investment hasn't materialized as well from Russia. Yet we got all the vaccines and yeah, from Russian sources and Chinese sources. The Russian spy bank, also called spy bank, International Investment Bank, had to close down the businesses. But before that, we see what actually Russians received. So tax and contribution exemption, protected headquarters, even uncontrollable. Then provision of presidential residences, unrestricted entry, for example, immigration, and even diplomatic immunity was provided to the people related to this bank. That's why we could assume that it worked also as a kind of spy bank. The bank has commenced a relocation of its operation and functions of headquarters from Hungary to Russia after also Hungary jumped out from the investment. Splitting sharply from his NATO alliance, Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary said that proposed sanctions against Russia, if it takes military action against Ukraine, would be doomed to failure, and that Russian security demands were reasonable. Visiting Moscow, Mr. Orban met privately with President Vladimir Putin of Russia in 2022, February, just before the war itself. At the same time, Mr. Orban just assured us that the president was very calm and said that Russia's demands for security guarantees are normal and should be the basis for negotiations. And also, that Russia has no intention to launch a war against Ukraine. So Mr. Putin did not see any intention for Russia to escalate the conflict with Ukraine. Yet we see that Hungary is kind of So Mr. Orban is practically behaving like a tool of Russian foreign policy. So 2017, Hungary introduced a so-called golden visa program. With the residency bond investment in Hungary, permanent residency could become available, and those who have applied for it, they could also reapply once the time of 5 years were over. Now, citizenship can be applied after 8 years, but under strict conditions, including a language test. The key facts are the following. Investment of 300,000. Recently, it has been decreased to 250,000. And at the same time, what we see here is that the government refused to disclose the names of those investors, but a joint investigation of several media partners has revealed that a number of influential Russian individuals, including politicians, executives of state companies, received Hungarian residence permit. We also see that such VIP visas attract corruption. Therefore, Ireland, Cyprus, and the Netherlands have already cut their VIP visa schemes, while Portugal reformed this program. All EU states tightened their visa rules for Russian and Belarusian nationals in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Yet, Hungary made another way. Under the new scheme, nationals of both Russia and Belarus are now eligible to obtain 2-year work visas, which can be extended for another 3 years under facilitated rules, and that ultimately apply for permanent residents and settle with their families in the country. The easing of the visa rules for Russians and Belarusians has raised concerns among many EU leaders and representatives. Let's see what caused this kind of path for the Hungarian foreign issues or foreign affairs. As Foy stated in Financial Times, the EU has devised a legal workaround to sidestep Hungary's veto on buying weapons. So we see that EU found a way to bypass potential Hungarian veto. Hungary blocked the joint EU statement on Russia's media ban. So what we see that completely the opposite way what actually all the other European members did. Hungary's behavior is unacceptable from the point of the European Union members. Also, what we don't know, perhaps, is that the media inside Hungary, so the domestic sound or domestic voice of the media was against Ukraine and said that Ukraine provoked provocated this kind of war. So Ukraine's behavior is not good enough to actually get into the get next to the table to talk about any peace. Now, Hungary keeps blocking 3 separate 500 million euro funding from the European Peace Facility aimed to help Ukraine. And then Orban also met President Putin in China in 2023, again seen as an offensive move against the European unity. And the next year in summer, actually, Orban showed that they won again the election of the European Parliament election, and then said, all right, now that this happened, he would like to try at himself to show that he's ready to take or drive the two nations to the table to finally agree on a peace. Due to Orban's visit, and in Russia and in China, the gap between EU and Hungary has just widened after that. Nevertheless, this hasn't stopped here. After the visit in Ukraine, which was perceived as a very welcoming message from the EU, he actually went to Russia and then visited Xi Jinping, and then also the presidential candidate Trump, as he believes that Trump would be the right person to end the war. Hungary currently holds the 6-month rotating presidency of the EU Council, that's what I wanted to say, which involves coordinating policy and hosting various informal ministerial meetings during the period. Now, we ought to see is that it's kind of boycotted, and there is a kind of isolation from many of the countries, but it could also become very dangerous. Yet we also have to say that Viktor Orban openly supports Trump. Viktor Orban openly opposed the re-election of Ursula von der Leyen re-election. Recently, so for some reason, Orban is on the wrong side, making no friends inside the European Union, and rather isolation. Well, it's not exactly because of Russia, but we see that the way how the Hungarian democracy changes to illiberal democracy, we also see that many of the regulations required by the European Union hasn't been implemented in Hungary. Accordingly, funds were frozen, and the problem is that these funds will be available only till 2027. So whether or not sooner or later the Hungarian president has to move in to do something, not to lose the entire funds, the entire support from the European Union. It's going to be a hard work, so I'm not sure if the current president current prime minister of Hungary can be the right person for this job. Thank you very much for your attention. I stop here, and if you have any questions, please let me know.